Thanks for joining us today on Conversations, our Front Porch Conversations here at Advent Christian Village. I have with me today Bill and Gayle Jones, and they're going to be taking part in our conversation here this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, yeah.
Bill and Gayle are members of the village and live off campus and on 136. Is that correct?
It's called Dowling Park North. Yes.
And it is nice that we have members living in the village as well as the opportunity to have members off campus. And we're glad you joined us. And I understand you joined us, well, you started coming here for a number of years.
Yes.
You want to tell me about that?
Yes, we helped a friend of ours, Cindy Miller. Some of our people may remember Cindy. Moved up here from Bradenton, and we were her neighbors. She needed help, so we helped her move, and learned about the village. Yes.
Good for you, Bill.
And so that was a really interesting time for us, and we got to know people in the village. And then we were asked if we would like to come and sort of house sit and take care of kitty cats for Paul and Anita Miller. And so while they go to Rhode Island, well, we did that for almost five summers. When they would go up there, we would come. So we really got involved with the village through that experience. And we were very grateful to have that prelude before we moved.
So you were really interviewing the village for 5 years
Yes.
before you became members.
Yes.
Well, we're so glad you joined us. I'd like to learn for our members who are watching today a little bit about your history, where you were born, where you grew up.
Well, I was born in Youngstown, Ohio, and grew up there. Then from there went to school in Cleveland, Ohio. I was in the St. Luke's Hospital School of Nursing. And so that was my transition. I was in Youngstown for those 18 years. It was a beautiful time of being involved in our church family there.
Do you have siblings?
I have one brother, and he's living in St. Louis, Missouri, he and his wife. And that's my only relative, really. Most of my family is no longer with us, so we don't get back to Youngstown. Haven't been there for quite a few years.
There's not the connection anymore.
No connection any longer.
And Bill, what about you?
Oh, I was born in Canton, Ohio. My parents moved to Cleveland when I was about 4 years old, and so I started school. We were living in Cleveland Heights, which is an eastern suburb of Cleveland, and that's where I went to high school and elementary school, high school, and all that. And then I went to college out in Terre Haute, Indiana, at Rose Polytechnic Institute, and then transferred to Case University in Cleveland, about mid-college life, and graduated with a BBA in Business Administration from Case Western Reserve.
And so along the way, the name of the university changed. Is that right?
No, college changed.
Oh, okay.
I changed colleges.
Oh, I see. Okay.
From engineering to business. And I met Gayle in Cleveland then, after I graduated.
Well, let's go back a little bit in history, though. Tell me a little bit, one of your first memories, or one of your special memories of growing up.
Well, as I said, we were very involved in our local church, and it was sort of our family. Whenever the doors were open, our family was there, mother and dad and my brother and I. In Sunday school, sang in the choir, the youth group, but one of the things that I remember most about it was we were buying an organ, a pipe organ for the church, which was quite a major project. In order to have enough funds to do that, our church had a restaurant tent at the county fair, right on the fairgrounds, every summer. We did that for about 6 years. And that was the most delightful time of the summer, was when we could go out and spend a week at the county fair. I had to work too. I had to clean tables and wash dishes and all that too. But anyway, it was a fun memory. I think of it often.
And then the opportunity for the church to buy the organ, pipe organ, right?
Yes, the church bought the pipe organ, and it was actually played at our wedding.
Right.
But it was played before that too.
Bill, you were sharing with me earlier when we had a conversation about growing up and being very involved in Boy Scouting.
Yeah, that was one of the big things that I did in my early years. My dad was the Cub Pack leader, and so we were very involved in cubbing. And then our Cub Pack was associated with the Boy Scout troop, so I moved right into Boy Scouts when I was of age. And I went on to become an Eagle Scout. We had a scoutmaster whose life was scouting. He was a bachelor, and so the boys were his big thing. And we had weekend camps every month of the year except for July, when we had a 2-week summer camp. So we did a lot of camping. I became an Eagle Scout, and later the fellow I worked for had 2 sons. Actually, that's why he hired me, so I could go on, and I formed an explorer post so his kids could go on and be explorers too. So that, and the other thing I did in high school was swimming. I was captain of the swimming team, and went through a whole season pretty much undefeated, except the last meet, one of our swimmers jumped the gun and was disqualified, and we lost the last meet. But having said that, we had a very successful season.
What was your specialty?
100-yard freestyle. I would typically swim it in less than a minute, 58, 59 seconds. And that led, when I was in scouting then, I was the waterfront director in charge of the boating, swimming, and all that sort of thing. Things kind of fit together,
Yes.
so to speak.
And used all those experiences a lot through your life.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I was also in the band in high school. In fact, I started out playing the baritone in junior high school, and I had a trombone teacher. He was the trombonist for the Cleveland Symphony. And he said, "You can't make any money playing a baritone. Switch to the trombone." So I switched to the trombone, and then when I moved to high school, I was sitting so far down in the trombone section that I was right next to the tubas. And I was big enough, they hung a tuba on me and said, "You play that." So I played that in the marching band for a couple years, and then they hired a new band director. I didn't tell him I knew what a tuba was. Went back to the trombone. But that was the end of my music career when I graduated from high school.
Well, where did you meet? I hear there's an interesting story about that. Or how did you meet?
Yeah. Friends who had friends.
Yeah, a friend of a friend told us about each other, I guess, and so I called Gayle and we set up a meeting for Saturday. I was going to take her sailing, but the company I was working for, I was in charge of product development, And I not only had to design the product, but I had to build the prototype. It was a form of hardware used in trucks. And so I was in on Saturday morning, and I had set up a date with her to go sailing. I was going to pick her up at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock came, and I was still working, so I called her and said, I'll be a little late. And 2 o'clock came, and another phone call. I finally got there at 4 o'clock, and it was too late to go sailing because the boat was, an hour away. So we went out to dinner, had a steak dinner and so on, and later on we played a recording of Carmen.
So both of you have an interest in music.
Yes, we have
I'm
that.
interested in music. I love grand opera. During my childhood, Saturday afternoon, I would be in front of the radio listening to the Saturday afternoon matinees of the Metropolitan Opera in New York. I did that for years.
He knows them all.
So I
But
guess
it
you'd
was-
call me an opera buff.
But I waited,
She waited.
and I should have known what it was going to be like because I still wait on it.
But it looks like it worked out fairly well.
It did.
How long did it?
We were just trying to figure that out.
That
We
was-
were engaged just 6 months, but we were married. We decided it's 64 years.
Congratulations.
She told a nurse or a friend of hers once, or a friend asked, how long have you been married? And she said 64 years, and she said, to the same man.
So we were blessed. We were blessed.
And children?
Oh, yes. We do have 3 children. Our son, Bill Jr., lives in St. Petersburg. He has 2 sons and a daughter. His 2 sons, one is a junior in college, the other one is working, and their daughter is going to be a senior this year. And,
High school.
In high school, yes. And they're very, very involved in their church and very active in their community. We have our daughter Beth, and it's interesting, Bill and Beth were born on the same day, 2 years apart.
Oh my goodness. So did you have joint birthday parties?
We did. They each had their own cake. They each had their own cake, and it got to the point when they were older that one would be down in the family room and one would be up in the living room. So we had parties going everywhere, but we always had a party for them. They always had their choice of cake, and it was a fun time. But the interesting thing is when our son married, he married his wife Sandy, we found out that her birthday was the same day. So we have 3 April 11th birthdays in our family. But then we have a daughter, Beth, or Carol Sue, and Carol is our youngest, and she and her husband, Will, are missionaries with the Southern Baptist Convention, and they have been in South Asia for about 14 years, and in the country of Nepal for 13 of those years. And I'm really excited because Carol and the 2 younger children are coming home. They'll be here next week. And home, really, they're going to be coming into Atlanta, but at least they'll be within shouting distance, so we will get to see them. I know they'll be down. And then her husband will follow. He'll be here at the end of the month. And they're transitioning into another mission service. So.
And I think you kind of skipped your middle child.
Oh, I started. How did I do that? That's Beth Ann. Yes, she is. I was telling you about the birthdays. Yes, she and her husband Mike live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Beth and Mike met in medical school, and they both were physicians, MDs. But there came a time when Beth decided they wanted to have a child, and so they went all the way to China to find their first child. And they brought a boy home, and as you said, people don't usually see boys as adopted from China, but it's because our Jonathan and Daniel, who were brought over 3 years apart, both had cleft lip, cleft palate issues, and so required a lot of care, a lot of surgeries. And she homeschooled them along with their younger brother, Peter, who came along 3 years after that. So I figure she's a missionary too. She just brought her mission home with her. But they're a beautiful, beautiful family in Indianapolis. So.
Would you tell the folks watching about the story your grandson kept being asked about? Where was he from?
Yes, Jonathan would get very weary because here he is in this country, and of course there are a lot of other countries involved, but he'd have to say, where are you from? And he said, well, if you look on the bottom of my foot, I was made in China.
And it's
stamped on the bottom of my foot. Yes, made in China. So that's his standard answer. But he is a delightful young man, and a blessing.
All three of them are exceptional.
They are. They really are.
They're all, well, Jonathan is in the University of Indiana, Bloomington right now. Daniel is planning on going to Ferris State, which is in northern Michigan. It's a school that it's like a technical school because he's very interested in automotive things. And then Peter, the youngest, wants to be a Marine. We don't know where that's going, but...
Well, when I asked him why he wanted to be a Marine, he said because it's the toughest.
Oh. You know, it's a joy raising children and watching them grow up and seeing what they become, and it sounds like y'all have done a wonderful job of parenting.
We've enjoyed it. They've just been too far away, but we've kept in touch with the modern means. Even in Nepal, I can talk to my daughter for 45 minutes at a time, and it's wonderful.
But it's a whole new story when the grandchildren start coming along and you get to be involved in watching them.
Yes, it is. And we've been blessed to have them.
Yeah, well, I know the communications today are so wonderful. I know our daughter Beth, when she was in medical school, she took a short-term mission period in Zaire. And I put her on the plane at Kennedy, and she went to Zaire. She was there for a month?
2 months.
2 months. 2 months. We never heard from her or anything. And she was supposed to be at Kennedy on such and such a date. And I went up there. She walked off the plane. It was just amazing because we had no contact with her in all that period. But today we talked for hours on.
And you would be texting with her on her,
Yes, on her phone, but
yeah.
they had no phones, and she didn't have one to carry with her, so it's amazing.
It really, a lot of changes.
A lot of changes, yes.
I know both of you have some special interest, and would you share with me some of the things that you're enjoying here at the village?
Well, I am belong to the Village Artists Guild. And I actually became involved with that group when we were coming up for the summers. And I've actually been able to stay with them and be part of that group and really learn a lot and develop my talent, I guess, gift of painting, and explored so much because we interact so beautifully. It's a family, and So that's been a real blessing, and I enjoy painting, and I have a problem because I have stacks and stacks of them that I don't know what to do with. But anyway, it's a great outlet, so I enjoy painting.
Well, I know that one place you have some, and it's right here in the office at the lodge.
That's right. We do put our paintings there for people to see and purchase if they're interested. And we're actually going to be having an open house at the Artists Guild in the end of the month, and hope more people can come and see what we do. But along with that, I like to write. I do prose and poetry and songs. I've written songs, and I enjoy singing in the choir. And I learned that as a kid in our church back in Youngstown, Ohio, with the white robes and the big bows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I had one. So that was a good memory, and that it formed what I'm doing today, a lot of those things. So. Oh, and gardening. I love flowers. And that's what we like about being out where we are. I have the gardens. I don't have vegetables. I don't do vegetables anymore. I gave that up when we left Wisconsin. But I do like the plants.
Bill, what about you?
Well, when we were staying at the Miller's house in the summers, while they were in Rhode Island, I met Wayne Darby. And I got to know him over at the Twice Nice Furniture and More. And in fact, he kind of latched on to me and asked me to come to work over there. So I would work on the desk in the summers when we were here staying at the Millers. And then when we moved here full time, I didn't want to do the desk and the money, so I moved back and I take care of the incoming stuff, the electrical stuff, digital stuff, computers, and whatever comes in, I check in. But I'm very busy with that. I look forward to being there on Monday and Thursday afternoons. And then I also work at the Copeland Center at the front desk. Non-exercise type of job, but greeting people and doing whatever needs to be done there.
So you're responsible at the Twice Nice Furniture and More for making things work so somebody else will want them?
Yeah.
That's great.
Making sure they work and they're saleable. Yeah.
What's the most unusual thing that you've gotten into work on, do you think?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's one thing that came in. It's a battery-powered TV set, light, and emergency siren. Now, I'm not.
Are you going to get all the components working?
Pardon?
Will you be able to get all those different components working?
I could get them working. I don't know who'd want to buy it though. It's got a method for plugging into your car, a cigarette lighter, and but it also has its own internal batteries. It's got 12 D-size rechargeable batteries, which are pretty expensive, so that's kind of a drawback to it, but that's probably the most unusual thing I've seen. There have been some things that I could not define. I didn't know what they were, how they work, what they were supposed to do. They ended up going elsewhere. Some stuff we get in, we send down to the Boys Ranch, their resale shop. But we try to fix up everything that we can. Before we put it out, we know it's working.
That's great.
So,
Well, when we were visiting earlier, you talked about the farm. Tell us about your farming experience.
That was a wonderful time.
Well, and that wasn't farming.
Oh, it was living on
Yeah,
a farm.
it was
Camping on a farm.
camping.
Camping on a farm. It was down in southern Ohio. It was 86 acres of, it was unfarmable land, but I say if you would have stretched it out, it was probably 200 acres because it was up and down and hills and valleys, gorges, it had caves in it, and it was just a great place for the kids to be. I know when I was a kid, we used to go to some places east of Cleveland. I remember that it's like being in the valleys and so on. And this was just like I had up there at the public parks in Cleveland. Only it was our place.
The children enjoyed it because we stayed in a tent and we cooked our meals over a fire. And so that was a fun. They look forward to it. Every Saturday during the summer months and nice weather, we would go down and stay overnight. And it was a great place. We had to leave it before we were able to develop it because we moved to Wisconsin.
Wasn't cold enough in Ohio?
It wasn't cold enough. Oh my goodness, it was cold in Wisconsin, and that's how I came to Florida.
How long were you in Wisconsin?
What we decided that was,
20 years.
it was at least
Two
20. Yes, we lived in a small town called Mayville, where Bill was working with May Steel, and then we went down to Sun Prairie, which is a suburb of Madison, and that was the year our son went to West Point. That was a
That's
big
quite an
event.
accomplishment.
That was quite
anyone.
Yes, and that's why we're always thankful for Mayville, because that small town, it was neat that he was chosen, he was selected by the Congress. Who was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had met,
We're about
when
up.
I was with Carnegie, I traveled a lot, and I was a Rotarian, and I was at the Rotary Club in Madison, and I met our congressman, Congressman Kastenmeier, and I said, you ought to come up to Madison or to Mayville and talk to us up there. So he actually came up to Mayville, talked to our Rotary Club there, and the school superintendent was in our Rotary Club, and when he found out Kastenmeier was coming, he asked me to take him to the high school too. So I took Kastenmeier to the high school and introduced him to they had what do you call it? They had an assembly for him. So he was I don't think it was my son that got into West Point, but I was able to introduce him to the congressman who gave him the appointment.
You know, it's wonderful to think of all the different trails in our lives that intersect and then bring up new opportunities.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate y'all coming today and sitting down on the front porch here.
Very nice.
And
Porch.
and look forward to having other conversations with you.
Well, thank you, Ann. It's been a pleasure being here.
Yes,
Thank you.
very
Thank
much
you
so.
for what you do here at the village as well.
Mhm.